Question number 91. This is a question in which the statement is given. Basis of the statement, we have to select the correct value from the drop down, which one is the correct. So the statement is a common platform for deploying object to a cloud infrastructure and for implementing consistency across the Azure union. Azure policy. Azure policy enforce rule and ensure the compliance. Example restrict VM size, require tag, not above the deploying object. But here we have to deploy the object to cloud. Resource group. This is the logical container for Azure resource help to organize and manage them, not about the providing the deployment platform. So for the deployment platform, Azure Resource Manager (ARM), that is the yes. It's a JSON template used to deploy resource consistently and to Azure. They provide the common platform for deploying resource and ensuring consistency. So this is the ARM template. This is very good for if you want to deploy a consistent value, a consistent type of the OS. So ARM is the best way to deploy. So yes, option three is the correct. Option four, management group. Group multiple subscription for a policy and RBAC management, not about the deployment. So this question is very simple. If you are coming from question 1 to 90, ARM is the correct answer. As means without the discussion, you can guess that the ARM template means Azure Resource Manager template provide the consistent deployment across the Azure region. Question number 92. In this question, there is an answer option and the statements are there. We have to match with the statement the answer option. So for that, first statement is dash dash means from which option, which one is the good for the provides a digital online assessment that provides speech support. So build and deploy intelligent chatbot that can interact with the user via the text, speech, and other channel. Which one is the correct option? Here we can see Azure Board Service. Azure Board Service fit in this first statement. Statement 2. User past training to provide the prediction that have a high probability. So for this we can select something which is the use the historical data to train the model and make the prediction for the classification. That is the part of the Azure machine learning. In the machine learning, we give the historical data to train the model. And once the model trained, then the machine will be able to predict or take the decision. Statement 3. Provide serverless computing functionality. That is something which we run the code without the provisioning or managing server. That is serverless computing. So for this Azure function, by which in the Azure function, there is no need any type of the s- managing server. That is the serverless computing. So Azure function fits here. Process data from millions of the sensor. This is the part of something from where we connect, monitor, and manage IoT devices, handle massive streams of the sensor data. This is part of the Azure IoT hub. So, mm, statement 4 is the Azure IoT hub. Question number 93. An Azure administrator plans to run a PowerShell script that create Azure resources. You need to recommend which computer configuration to use to run the script. Solution: run the script from the computer that run Windows 10 and has a Azure PowerShell module installed. Does it meet this goal? Yes. Why? Because to run a PowerShell script from Azure resources creation, you must have a PowerShell installed. Okay. And the Azure PowerShell module installed. Once the installation done, you can run the command like connect AG account and then use the PowerShell command like new AGVM, new AG resource group, etc. to create the Azure resource. So there is nothing in this question that require another OS or special configuration. So this setup meets the requirement. So answer is yes. Question number 94. In this question again we have to select the proper keyword which belongs from which statement. So Azure Function. Azure Function provide a platform for the serverless code, which we already discussed. So Azure Function let you run a small piece of the code without managing infrastructure and you pay only for the execution time. Remember, whenever we run the Azure function, that will cost only for the execution time, not for creating the function. So once the function will run, then they will take the cost of that one, not for creating the function and all this. So correct answer is for Azure function is the provide a platform for a serverless code. Azure App Service. Azure App Service is used to build and deploy and scale up your web application and web-based application. Azure Web App Service is the platform as a service, and this is used for hosting the web application API and mobile backends. Statement 3. Azure Virtual Machine. Azure Virtual Machine, as we know very well that this is the operating system visualization. Azure VM gives you the full control over the OS in the cloud, just like having a computer. A computer, you can say, server. So, Azure Virtual Machine Mesh will be provide operating system visualization. Option 4. Azure Container Instance. Azure Container Instance that is used to provide the portable environment for the visualization of application. This is something which contain the package application with their dependency, making them portable across the environment. Azure Container Instance is the simplest way to run the containers in the Azure without managing VM. Question number 95. Which service provides the serverless computing in Azure? Azure Virtual Machine, Azure Function, Azure Storage Account, Azure Container Instance. So, answer is Azure function. We have multiple time discussed about the Azure function. This is the functionality of the Azure function that it provides the serverless computing in Azure. So, option is, I think there is no need to discuss rest of the option because Azure VM, that is the virtual machine, as a it's like a OS means a computer, a server, anything which we create Azure Storage Account used to store the data. So option A and C is incorrect. Azure Container Instance container is used to run containers without managing VM, but is still not fully serverless. So option D is also incorrect. So correct answer is option D, Azure Function. Question number 96. You have an Azure subscription named as subscription and you have signed in into the Azure portal and create the resource group named RG1. From the Azure documentation, you have a following command: create the virtual machine named VM1. AG-VM1 create resource group RG1 named VM1 image 12 PL generate SSS key. You need to create a VM1 in subscription 1 by using the command solution from the Azure portal. Launch Azure Cloud Shell and select PaaS. Run the command in the Cloud Shell. Does it meet the group? I think we have discussed this type of the question earlier as well. So the answer is yes. Now we are coming to the point why the answer is yes. So in the Azure CLI command that create the virtual machine in the specified resource group using the one-to LTS image command is correct. Now come to the point Azure PowerShell. Azure PowerShell support Azure CLI and PaaS. By launching the Azure Shell in the Azure portal, selecting where's and running this command, it will execute in the context of your logged in Azure subscription. That is a subscription one. Right. Now, since the resource group RG1 already exists in subscription one, the VM will be created successfully. Cloud Shell is already installed in Azure CLI. That is pre-installed. Okay. You are already authenticated when you are open the Cloud Shell from the portal. So no extra setup is required for SSS key because generate SSS key is optional. So yes, this method meets the goal. Question number 97. Your company has a several business unit. Each business unit requires 20 different Azure resources for daily operation. All the business units require the same type of Azure resources. You need to recommend a solution that automate the creation of the Azure resources. What should you include your recommendation? Azure Resource Manager template, virtual machine skill set, the Azure API management service, the management group. As we know that the question is asking for multiple business unit you have and each need the same 20 Azure resources. We want to automate the creation. So ARM is the best way because ARM template is the JSON file in which you can define all the settings, and when you will define all those things, they can include multiple resources and their configuration and their dependency. You can deploy the ARM template repeatedly for each business unit, ensuring that the consistent and the automated deployment for the 20 required resources. So, ARM template means option A is the correct Azure resource management. ARM template is the correct answer. Rest are not incorrect. Why? Because virtual machine skill set, this is only used to scaling the VM, not for the creating various Azure resources. Option C, Azure API management service. That is used to manage the API, not providing the infrastructure. Option D, management group. That help to organize subscription, not for deploy the resource. Question number 98. This is the, we have some keywords. Basis of the keywords, there is some statement. So which keyword is belongs on which statement? Azure Database. Azure Database is a big data analysis service for the machine learning. So Database is used for the advanced analytics, big data processing, and machine learning work. So Azure Database belongs from a big data analysis and service for machine learning. Azure function that let you run the code without managing server and scaling automatically. So this belongs and provide the platform serverless code. C, Azure App Service. App Service is the part of the platform as a service, PaaS offering, deploying running web application. That is the host web app. Azure Application Insight. Application Insight is the monitor the app performance and help and diagnose the issue. So it's a part of the detect and diagnose the anomaly in the weather. Question number 91. You plan to deploy critical line of business application to Azure. The application will run on the Azure virtual machine. You need to recommend a deployment solution for the application. The solution must provide guaranteed availability of the 99.9%. What is the minimum number of the virtual machine and the minimum number of availability zone you should recommended for deployment? So minimum number of the virtual machine will be two because uh, because in this you know very well that application will run on the Azure virtual machine and you need to recommend a deployment solution for the application. The solution must provide guaranteed availability of 99.99%. So the minimum number of the virtual machine will be two and the minimum number of availability zone will be two because if one machine will be down then other machine will be up. If a zone is down, then at least another zone we can use to run the application. So minimum number of virtual machine will be two and the minimum availability zone will be two. One is not suits from any way, neither in a virtual machine nor in availability zone. Question number 100. Which Azure service should you use to collect events from the multiple resources into the centralized repository? Option A, Azure Event Hub. Option B, Analysis Service. Option C, Azure Monitor. Option D, Azure Stream Analytics. So, the correct answer is Azure Monitor because Azure Monitor is designed to collect, analyze, and add telemetry data from multiple Azure resources. It aggregates log and metrics into the centralized repository where you can apply the query, visualize and set the alert. Azure Event Hub. Azure Event Hub is something for the streaming large amount of event data, often used for the telemetry in integration at scale. Or we can say Azure Event Hub is the streaming large amount of event data, often used for telemetry injection at a scale. Azure Analysis Service is for the advanced data modeling, not event collection. Option D, Azure Stream Analytics. This is used to process and analyze the streaming data in real time, but it doesn't serve as the primary centralized repository. So, in summary, if the goal is to collect and centralize event telemetry for many Azure resources for monitoring and analysis, Azure Monitor is the right service.